This is the Pipkin and Turnbull Show, episode 10, coming to you live tonight on this fine New Year's Eve. So, we hope you guys are all having an awesome night tonight. We got a fun show planned for you guys. Stay safe tonight. Uh, like I was telling Jamie, most of the people we know will be in bed by like 9 o'clock tonight. So all of our friends, all of
Yeah.
our friends should be fine. But anyways, for everybody else, but
Yeah.
everybody be safe tonight. But we got a lot of great things to talk about tonight. Got kind of the end of the 2019 season for football and all these bowl games and everything going on. But so Jamie, we want to break down what we'll be
Mhm.
talking about tonight.
Tonight we're going to go over the wild card games that we're going to see this weekend, and then give you maybe some predictions of how we feel the divisional round is going to go, who's going to be there in the divisional round, and then we're going to look at the national championship game on January 13th, and maybe talk about the games that led up to Clemson and LSU being in the game. And we're just gonna dive right in. So, with that said, do you want to talk about the AFC or the NFC
Let's
first?
get into the NFC because usually we get a little bit more AFC talk because of you know who. You know
Yeah.
why we do that. It's because of that
hmm
little banner behind you. That's why we do that. So let's do some NFC before we only talk a minute. Be like, oh yeah, we think so and so like for a minute for the NFC. Oh yeah, but no, we gotta. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a really fun. Like I think for me to open, I think we've been talking kind of about every week. What a great year of football it has been. What was awesome
hmm
about this year in particular is like week 17 mattered for most of the
hmm
teams in the playoffs and how everything fell into place. Like all these games mattered in week 17, which I loved. Whatever fan base you're a part of, I think, um, even though that, some things didn't go my way the way I would like to see in week 17 go, but it was still a lot of fun just to like see where these games do matter, especially this year. The whole idea of
Yeah.
a lot of teams, this was a playoff game, and that really was the case for a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
NFC, we have 49ers taking the first spot. We got the Packers taking two, Saints at three,
mm
Eagles at four, Seahawks at five, and Vikings at six. So you will get Eagles, Seahawks, and Saints, Vikings. So um, opening week for round one. Jamie, out of those two teams, out of the two wild cards teams, you could definitely make a case for both. But which ones do you think, out of the two wild card teams, the Seahawks or the Vikings, most likely to move on to the next round?
See, I was looking at this earlier. The NFC playoffs to me, until we get to the divisional round, the wild card is just really boring to me. Like I can just look at that and I can tell you who's gonna win. It's gonna be the Saints and the Seahawks are gonna move on. I don't think the Vikings can go toe to toe with the Saints, and I definitely don't think the Eagles right now can go toe to toe with the Seahawks. So I mean, to me, I think it's going to be the Seahawks and the Saints that move on to the divisional round. And I think we'll have a better matchups than what we have in the wild card. And it's not anything taken away from the Vikings because the Vikings are a good team. I just don't feel they're um, can match up very well against the Saints. And the Eagles, they came out of that terrible NFC East where basically somebody had to win. And they're just so decimated. Like they don't have any like really like good receivers right now. They're injuries, and I just don't feel like the Seahawks are gonna have much trouble with them at all. So I mean, for me, it's easy. Seahawks and Saints move on.
Yeah, I think the more shocking out of the two is if somehow the Eagles were to win. If the Eagles win this
Mm,
weekend, that would be probably the biggest shock that has happened in a while,
mm,
probably ever since the Seahawks beat the Saints one year. Uh,
yeah.
but you kind of think of some past history with the Eagles going into the playoffs. Do they have that same type of magic where they somehow make a run? I don't see it happening. But you could just, for whatever reason, you could, that would be your only case, is that based on past history and the pedigree on that team, you could say that you could make a small slimmer of a case for that to happen. The Vikings are a much
Yeah.
more interesting matchup against the Saints. Um, they'll be having Kirk Cousins will be back, Dalvin Cook will be back. Um, Kind of this team will be back, kind of fully loaded against the Saints. My biggest question mark is the Saints' weapons on offense. You've got Michael Thomas, the best wide receiver probably this year, probably meaning the most for any team. I would say if you
Yeah.
took all, not, I mean, talent wise, you could make cases for other, but a wide receiver meaning the most for their team, I would say Michael Thomas is that based on the other talent around him. Um, that's
Yeah.
where the Vikings, I think, could get the biggest advantage. Is just if they could somehow stop Kamara in the run and somehow keep Michael Thomas under wraps. There's a good chance for because the Vikings, I mean, on you know, depending on how Kirk Cousins play, they've got a lot of good pieces and a lot of good pieces that are coming about at the same time for them. So I don't know how
Yeah.
big of a shock it would be if the Vikings did win. I don't I'm kind of like with you. I don't know if I can see it happen just because like we've said for weeks now is you've got Drew Brees on the other side, and so when you start
Hmm.
going into the third and fourth quarters, that's where these games are kind of where it's all decided. Is in those two quarters, and usually
Yeah.
Drew Brees is the deciding factor in those two
Hmm.
quarters. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't. I think you're right in saying it is kind of obvious, but I can see the Vikings Saints being a much more interesting matchup than I think people are giving it credit. Just because if you think about the
Yeah.
talent and everything that could come together for the Vikings, you could really see and for whatever reason the Saints for the past couple of years, for whatever reason, something usually happens to them during the playoffs that they lose by a play. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm with you. I'm gonna go Saints. Seahawks are moving on this weekend. So that means we get another awesome 49ers Seahawks matchup and a Packers Saints matchup, which will be epic.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
so looking at the Packers and Saints, if we take that matchup first, because I think we're going to be talking a little bit longer about that Seahawk 49er matchup.
Hmm.
Packers Saints, I'm struggling with be and it goes back to talent wise, man. It really does for the Saints. Is This is the first year for the Saints that I can say, who do you have in that wide receiver core besides Michael Thomas? They worked out other guys. I'd have to check and see if they signed anybody. Um,
They did, but he just went. He went to their practice squad. I don't recognize
yeah.
his name at all. Yeah.
Saints defense. I mean the same thing for the Packers. I think the Packers are an underrated defensive team. I think they've got good talent
Yes.
for them. Um, Two great quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. It's just it comes down. It's Michael. And Michael Thomas is a beast. So I mean, it could be enough
Hmm.
for the Saints.
Yeah.
But to me, the biggest thing to me, Jamie, is Alvin Kamara and the running game for the Saints. They've got to come alive this playoffs for them to keep moving forward. You can't You can't invest into
Yeah,
somebody like Alvin Kamara and have nothing gained, by because they moved on Ingram, you know, which I know I've heard a lot of Saints talk. Don't know if that move is actually panning out for him. Um,
yeah.
so, what are your initial thoughts from this matchup?
Saints Packers. Well, it's going to be at Lambeau, and so you have to look at it like that. Can anybody come into Lambeau in January and beat the Packers? Especially a team that plays in a dome, down south. And so they're going to have the elements. They're going to have the a very very passionate Green Bay fan base there in probably max capacity. Can you go in there and win? And a lot of that is going to come down to the Saints running game, because whenever you always hear the running game is what you need to it needs to be good in the playoffs. And um and I kind of don't think they did. And so I'm leaning more towards the Packers. They just seem like a more well-rounded team. He's got. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. Don't go against Drew Brees, obviously, because he's Drew Brees. But I think Aaron Rodgers, be that it's at home, um, I just can't go against him whenever
Yeah.
it's just the way it's looking. I just can't bet against Aaron Rodgers at this point.
Yeah, the only
So,
I do agree with you to a sense. Do the elements would play a factor depending on how bad they are. If you do get that Packers Saints,
mm,
um, uh, you know, but besides that, the elements changing. I don't know how. And Lambeau Field does play an advantage. Home field does play an advantage. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
as you can tell, I'm struggling with this one just because, like I said, they match up really well, and
Yeah,
that's what I keep going back to in my head. Is just like usually, you look at quarterbacks, you look at the matchups, you look at talent wise. Saints
mm-hmm.
and Packers are really close. Probably
Yeah,
the closest in matchups that we have, maybe on the AFC and NFC side. That's where
yeah,
my head is kind of, looking at the running game, looking at the quarterbacks, kind of thinking about the wide receivers. I would say, I think talent wise, you get a little bit more talent on the wide receiver core, just manpower wise on the Packers, even though Michael Thomas is still the best wide receiver on the field. Um,
mm-hmm.
yeah. Um,
It's gonna be a good
yeah.
matchup.
And I don't really want to pick right now. I think I'm gonna wait on that
Yeah,
pick because I need to see the Saints Vikings game before I can make that pick. Um,
yeah,
but here and then going into Seahawks 49ers, this last week, 49ers were able to notch a win, 26-21, another close, great game for the two
mm-hmm.
teams. Um, this whole season, I've been really for the Seahawks. Really been pushing that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the way that these two teams are kind of rolling into the playoffs, that's why Saturday is going to be really, or Sunday, when they play, it's going to be super interesting. Just for me to be able to watch the Seahawks play, because here of late, the last couple of
Yeah,
weeks, I've been questioning where this team is at.
mm-hmm.
Obviously, kind of Russell Wilson himself kind of slowed down off that MVP race, but still is doing great. But it's kind of, there are some weaknesses showing. Like, you need more than T.J. Lockett. There
Yeah,
are going to be some other guys that you're going to need to step up in that game defensively when you've got the 49ers and the Seahawks. And for the first
yeah,
time this season, I'm I'm almost probably leaning a little bit more 49ers than I have in the past, which is crazy. It's probably the first time I've said
yeah.
it this whole time we've been doing this. But the 49ers kind of going into this playoffs, to me, have looked and kind of everything coming together wise too, uh, kind of have an edge against the Seahawks. The way I've been looking at it.
Uh See, I've been kind of, since we've been doing this, I've been kind of on the 49ers, like, we need to watch out for them. We need to watch out for them. And then, here they are as the number one seed in the NFC, and that's awesome. I love their defense. Their offense is still a little iffy for me. It has its flashes. Kittle is a great tight end. Garoppolo, I still feel is their weakest link.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah. For sure.
but I have to go. I would lean more towards Seattle.
Yeah.
And I think emotion is going to play a big part of it, because reading the comments and kind of going back and rewatching some highlights from the Week 17 game, Seattle was kind of screwed out of that game, and so I think a lot of emotion is going to come into it. And like we always say, whenever the teams are evenly matched, you got to go to the quarterback position, and I have to go with the guy that's been here, done that.
Right. Right.
One day we can maybe say, all right, Garoppolo's the quarterback. We're going to roll with him one day. But as of right now, Russell Wilson, I just trust him more. And I think with Marshawn Lynch coming back, my boy Travis Homer, um, you know, kind of showed some flashes in Week 17, former Miami Hurricane, and Tyler Lockett, and I just feel like the Seattle is going to edge it out. I thought they should have won in Week 17, and just some calls didn't go their way. That's just kind of how the nature of this season has kind of went.
Right.
But I love everything the 49ers have done, and I would love to see them go on and possibly play in the Super Bowl. But I just think Seattle has their number this year, and it just comes down to
Do you?
play.
To me, I'm starting to get a sense. Do you? I have a hard time believing that this is going to be another close game. For some reason in my head, I've almost got it to being like one team's going to actually win by 14. Like I
Yeah,
I and I could be wrong because the last two matches between these two teams have come down to kind of the last quarter, the last couple of plays, but I kind of just
yeah,
a feeling like it's going to be either this 14-point swing, which is odd. I've never kind
yeah,
of felt like that, but because I have a hard time believing that three times in a row that it could be, that it just
yeah.
being such a great game every three times. But with Seattle's and San Francisco's past, that has happened in the past. So
Yeah. And I mean, you got to look at it. San Fran went to Seattle and beat Seattle. Um, but Seattle's already went, and this is going to be in San Fran.
yeah,
Seattle's went there and they've beat San Francisco
right,
there. And so, like, I just don't know how much, when it comes to Seattle and where they play, I just really don't think home field advantage really affects them all that much. Because next to Arrowhead, that stadium is loud, and you can tell, and so I think they've just kind of grown accustomed to playing in a loud
yeah,
place, that I think they'll be able to go to Santa Clara or wherever they play and just not be affected by it, and I think that's really going to benefit Seattle in the playoffs, and I see them, honestly, I see them in the NFC Championship, because that team is dangerous. I love Russell Wilson. I love Marshawn Lynch. And I think with them and with that defense, I yeah, I
I'm
wouldn't be surprised to see them in the
yeah, no,
Super
I'm
Bowl.
what I'm most excited about is I really do think unless it's a shocker of all shocker, we're going to get round three. And I think every
Yeah.
football fan's excited about that. Um,
Oh yeah.
and that, yeah, that'll be one of those where that may be better than like the championship game. It's I'm
Yeah.
really excited about. Probably on the NFC side, I'm most excited to see that matchup again because one of my
Yeah.
favorite games was the first week where the Seattle beat San Fran. That was an amazing game. So
Mm,
um, so I'm
yeah.
I'm excited for round three for both those teams. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be
Divisional games are always
yeah.
awesome. Divisional
Yeah.
games in the
Yeah.
playoffs are a must
Yeah.
watch. You can't
Well,
miss it.
especially just
So
because besides kind of quarterback everywhere else, they match up so well, and
yeah.
same kind of styles and things like that. So, what's
Mm,
interesting, Jamie, is the year where the couple years where these two teams were going back and forth when they have Crabtree and you've got Kaepernick or Alex Smith. It was the same kind of vibe back then. Like those two teams could look in the
yeah.
mirror and be like Seattle, and 49ers. Like
Hmm.
that's what's awesome. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, back in the 2010, that 2008 to 2010 range where the Steelers and the Ravens could look at each other in the mirror and they were the exact same team. Like that was the comments that
Yeah.
everybody was making, and that's what I feel like this matchup has become, which is just really cool to
Yeah.
see. Uh, you're just
Yeah.
gonna see really well played football, and I'm excited about it,
Hmm.
man. All right, so that's the that's
I am
the
too.
that's the NFC. So moving into the AFC, which truly did it came even more so, I would say, than the NFC. There was a lot of
Yeah.
scenarios that had to take place that benefited a lot of teams. Um,
Hmm.
the first thing is just kind of how the Titans have come on this year. It's probably where one of my first things I
Yeah.
guess I would say is just um, is that ever since Tannehill kind of took over, this team is a different team. Um, I would
Yeah.
say, I mean, for the Patriots, this is a very like this is a much tougher matchup. Probably the toughest matchup for them. Um, you know,
Yeah.
um, I know the the Patriots looking right now really wish they could have gotten that win against Miami, obviously, but man, the bye is so
yeah.
crucial, man. Like just the way I don't
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
don't think the Chiefs want to see Tennessee week 1. I honestly don't. I don't know.
I don't want to. I don't want to see
Yeah.
them all. I don't want to see them at all
Yeah.
these playoffs.
Yeah,
I'm scared of the
because
Titans, man.
oddly enough, I don't know. You could almost make a case just matchup wise, it would be better for the Patriots uh to go ahead and win, and there be a Chiefs Patriots matchup. You could, if Chiefs, you could make a case
oh,
for that.
I
Yeah.
welcome it.
So yeah.
I
So
oof,
Bills finished out with a great. They had really a great early season, which carried their wins to the end. Great season for the Bills, and so you got the Texans and the Bills. I honestly think that this game's going to be honestly all these wild card games on the AFC side are going to be a lot closer. I think a lot of people are under the impression that the Texans are just with their firepower just going to be overwhelming the Bills, but I think the Bills have proven throughout the year just where their defense and some of the things that they're able to do offensively. I don't think that their offense necessarily scares anybody with who they have, but just you think about a
no.
well-rounded team that plays consistently, and I would say you'd put that in.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way you would define the Buffalo Bills this season. Um, I
Mhm.
think they've got enough to beat the Texans, but you've got that Deshaun Watson
Yeah.
factor. You've got, I think it was well thought out for the Texans to rest guys this past week, getting them ready for the Bills.
Yeah.
It was the first time I've really thought that was a good move. Typically, it comes back to bite teams, but I do feel like the Texans resting those guys was the right call. Um,
Yeah.
but I do like the Texans versus the Bills. Just I just think they've got a little bit more talent, probably on both sides of the ball. And then you've got the Deshaun
Yeah.
Watson factor. But I don't think it wouldn't be a shock to anybody if the Bills won. It wouldn't. I totally wouldn't.
No.
The biggest shock of this whole playoffs would be if the Eagles won. That would be probably the only biggest
Yeah.
shock. But the Bills beating the
Mm-hmm.
Texans is a very real thing, and it's a very real thing when you think about the Titans Patriots matchup. That you've got both of the wild card teams kind of going on for both games.
Mm-hmm.
What are your kind of initial
Yeah.
thoughts of these matchups, Jamie?
I haven't watched a lot of Bills games this year. Just more along the lines of highlights. The Bills, I think, are a sleeper team in this playoffs. When you look at it, you go directly to the Texans because the Texans just have a lot more star power, you know. But I love the Bills defense. I think the Bills defense can stop the Texans. It's the offense with Allen, because again, it comes down to quarterback, and while both of these quarterbacks are young, I kind of trust Watson more with what he can do. Where Allen has a really, really good arm, Watson's definitely a dual threat, and so I don't know. I'm leaning more towards the Bills though. I think the Bills will get an upset there. And for the Titans and the Patriots, yeah, I think the Titans can beat the Patriots. Actually, I know the Titans can beat the Patriots. It's more along the lines of should you bet against Tom
Exactly. Yeah.
Brady and
I
Bill
was sitting here
Belichick?
just thinking that, man. I was
You
just
know,
like, you can't bet against them until somebody beats them. Like
no,
it's
yeah,
hard for me to sit here and being like, but it makes so much sense for people to pick the Titans, though. Just thinking about this matchup, it's
yeah.
like, yeah,
They're such a scrappy team, and I love Derrick Henry. Um, but it's still Tom Brady
yeah,
and Bill Belichick.
yeah,
And anytime you bet against them in February, they're the ones lifting up the Lombardi. And so I feel like we're always in this situation with the Patriots, especially the last couple of years, where it's like, oh, this is the end, this is the end, this is the end of that dynasty, and then they win another Super Bowl. And so I want to pick the Titans, but I just don't see it. I like I said, man, the AFC wild card is just really, really interesting this year, and then the AFC divisional round will be really interesting. But I, man, I want to say the Titans, but I just can't pick against Belichick and Brady. I just
yeah.
can't do it.
I
It's just everything in me that's watched sports all these years. I'm just like, don't do it. They're
that
not
they're gonna
gonna
be in the
win.
Super Bowl.
Like,
it's like it's
yeah,
like you just like
yeah,
all signs tell you that shouldn't happen, but that's gonna happen.
mm-hmm,
That's what was kind of happening
yeah,
last year too, going into the playoffs. You're like, a lot of signs were telling you the Patriots shouldn't be in the Super Bowl, but what happened? They won the
mm-hmm.
Super Bowl, and
They
yeah,
were in the Super
exactly. And
Bowl.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, but I will say though, the Titans have the players, the skill set, and everything to beat the Patriots. Um, for
yes.
sure, no doubt.
Like I said, they're a scrappy,
They've
scrappy
got
team. They'll win and they'll win ugly,
yeah,
but they still
AJ
win.
Brown. AJ
I
Brown's for
love it.
real. Uh, I want him on
Mm-hmm.
my fantasy team next year. Um, shoot,
Yeah.
I hope I wasn't. I hope I may have even dropped him in one of my leagues, so shouldn't have done that.
Mm,
so,
mm.
but yeah, so I'm hoping. Yeah. Anyways, AJ Brown, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, defense, Mike Vrabel's defense. Shoot, yeah, they should. Yeah, it's like we're both sitting here thinking, but it's like it's not really gonna happen though. That's what I keep going back to. It's like it's not gonna happen. It's just like
And it's in
yeah,
Foxborough. It's in Foxborough. But we did just see Miami stun the Patriots in Foxborough. So it's just like anything can happen, but it's still the Patriots. they're in the playoffs
Yeah.
as always.
Well, what you've got to
And
do, the Titans, and you could say it, but the Titans have the players and the personnel to do this. Is you've got to out physical the Patriots, and at all points of
Mhm.
the game, every single possession has to be. Every single moment of that game, you have to out. Like I said, you got to out just muscle them. And like I said, I think
Yeah.
I think the Titans do have that type of mentality to do that. And that's
Hmm.
why when you think about if the Titans did get through, um, who the Titans or Patriots versus the Chiefs. As a Chiefs, fan of you, or as a Chiefs team, you're just thinking about Tom Brady, the pedigree. But when you look at this Titans team, you know they would be able to out more just personnel wise out physical you as a Chiefs unit. So
Yeah.
which kind of worries you more? You know, um, I don't know.
Titans. I, d- I don't want to play the Titans again. The Chiefs should
Right,
have won that game when we played them in Arrowhead. We found every possible way in the book
right.
to lose. I just, with the Chiefs' playoff history, man, I just don't want to play. Because last time we played the Titans in the playoffs, we played them in the wild card round, or we played in the divisional round. I can't remember, but they Mariota threw a touchdown pass
Yeah,
to himself.
yeah.
Like it's just yeah. I I can't even explain what happened, but he threw a touchdown pass
Right.
to himself, and the Titans. We were up like by 21, and the Titans beat us in the playoffs. And so it's just like when I look at the Titans, it's kind of like when I look at the Colts and getting ready to play them in the playoffs because we've had our heart broken so many times against the Colts. I just don't want to play them.
Well, it's kind of
Like
like
that
both
team
teams either way.
scares me. Give me the Ravens
That's
before
that's right.
giving me the
It's like
Titans. Like,
I mean, you could say the same, the same thought process for the Patriots even, because like, yeah,
yeah.
I, but them Ravens, man, I think it all goes back to
Hmm.
you're gonna be able to stop them Ravens, and
The thing is, though, the only way the Chiefs would play the Titans is if we met in the AFC Championship. If the Titans win,
right,
since
that's
they're the
true.
lowest
Yeah,
seed, the
yeah,
Ravens would play them. So
yeah, and I don't see the Titans getting past them Ravens. I,
no,
I'm, I the only team that if it's able to happen is really the only team that could really probably give the Ravens a game is the Chiefs. At this point, you thinking
yeah,
about just defensive personnel rise to be able to match kind of that speed, kind of on that outside
yeah,
linebacker, kind of trying to contain Lamar. But maybe, well, the Patriots
yeah.
defense would probably be able to with the skill players that they got. Um,
Ravens
yeah,
beat them though. Like it's the Ravens are just a
yeah,
scary team. Like they just and we talked about it a couple weeks ago. The only way you're going to beat the Ravens is the way the Chiefs did it, which last time the Ravens lost a game was in week 3
right.
against the Chiefs. We made Lamar throw. Like we took the run game completely out of it, and that's why they won or they lost. Is because he couldn't afford to run it anymore. He had to
Right.
throw it, and and so that's the way that you have. That's the only way you're going to beat the Ravens is you have to take the run game out of it. Because if you let Lamar run and throw on you, you're going to lose. And so,
Yeah.
but can any of the defenses that are in the AFC right now
Right.
do that? Chiefs have proved they can, but you can argue that the Ravens have gotten better since week 3. You can also argue the Chiefs have gotten better since week 3. But you know, that's the feat that everybody's gonna have to figure out in the AFC this in the between now and February is can you make Lamar just throw? And I don't know if there's a defense in the AFC that
Right.
can. And so that's
Right.
a scary thought.
Yeah, and I
So
think a lot of people are, yeah, and there are a lot of people who are kind of getting on this Chiefs bandwagon, or just this not bad, but just starting to like in what the Chiefs are at, because I say, unlike last year, I think where they're at is I think they're a lot more healthy at the start of the playoffs. I think they're on a lot better of a um, win streak where they're at. They're a lot better defensively where the Chiefs are at than last
yes.
year. A lot of things kind of point in the direction of, once again, is this our year? you know, unlike a couple, only a short 6 weeks ago where we were like, it may not be our year. it may be over with Patrick
Yeah.
Mahomes out, everything. But then,
Yeah.
you guys became the biggest Miami fans this week and won a playoff game and have a bye week. That the bye week I
Oh
think is
yeah.
super. Like, I think now everybody's starting to appreciate, but that bye week is just so important, man. It really is just like winning a
Mhm.
playoff game. Um,
Yeah.
but them
Uh,
playing in Arrowhead, besides the Ravens, that's huge. Um,
yeah.
so you're kind of rooting for one of the Texans or the Titans to knock off the Ravens to
Yeah.
keep it all at Arrowhead.
Oh, I would love that. If the Ravens lost in the divisional round, I would probably
yeah,
fall out of my seat. Because that would be such a huge
yeah,
upset. It's so much that I just don't see it happening. I could see the Chiefs losing in the divisional round before I could see the Ravens losing in the divisional round. Um, but it's also something I'm rooting so hard for because everyone's just wanting like that storybook of the Ravens are ascending to the top and Lamar Jackson's the hottest thing in the NFL this year, and so it's one of those things like it would be really cool to
yeah,
see them in the Super Bowl, but to see them in the Super Bowl means the Chiefs lost, and I don't want to see them in the
yeah.
Super
What
Bowl,
would be
so I would
Yeah,
rather
what would
see
be
the
kind of cool to
Chiefs.
see is if the Blues won last March in the 2019 season. It'd be
hmm
kind of cool to see,
Yeah,
the fan base around here getting the Blues to a win, and Chiefs Kingdom getting a Super Bowl win around that
yeah,
same time. That'd be kind of neat. That'd be pretty
yeah,
cool, man. Uh,
yeah,
and it's becoming more of a reality than I would say about 6 weeks ago.
yeah,
I would have never thought 6 weeks ago that we'd be kind of talking this way, where everything was such on the upswing for the Chiefs. But
yeah,
seems to be the plan.
yeah.
Seems to be working.
That Titans game really shook a lot of Chiefs fans because that was the Titans coming into that I think were 4-5.
Yeah,
And so that was supposed to be a team that we just rolled over. That was not supposed to be a team that we lose to, and we lost. And we lost in the most Chiefs fashion that you can lose. And now look at the Titans. They're in the playoffs, and now everyone's kind of looking at them as a dark horse. And so I would love to have a rematch with them because if we get a rematch with them, it means they have to come back to Arrowhead.
yeah,
But it's then again, man, that is the team that I just don't want to play because they beat
yeah.
us and uh. mm, mm.
So
But
that's
I'm loving the AFC playoffs this
so
year,
that's where we're
loving it.
at. So I'm guessing we're both thinking Patriots Texans this weekend. Are you gonna go Titans?
Oh, I want to go Titans so bad, but
okay,
no, I'm going. I'll switch up one. I'll say Bills and Patriots.
fair enough. All right, so that's what's
Yeah.
happening this weekend, man. So either way,
Yeah.
I'm hoping it'd be pretty cool to see some wild cards win it this weekend, and a big possibility that they
Yeah.
will, especially on the NFC
Yeah.
side. But if the Eagles would
hmm
have one of the largest upsets in playoff history if they manage a way to
I will eat my phone if the Eagles
win.
win
Don't be
this
saying
weekend.
that.
Okay.
You gonna
I'll
have
eat
to,
it.
man.
Arr.
I'm gonna make you eat it. I'm gonna make you eat it on this show. Make you eat your phone live. We'll do it
Oh,
live.
the show will be
Yeah,
canceled that day. I'll be
yeah,
busy.
yeah. I thought kidney stones were bad.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so uh
Oh man.
uh had football happen, playoff football happened in playoffs for college. Talk about that.
Woo!
So
Yeah.
the dismantling of Oklahoma is what happened. Uh I really thought that would be different, but uh obviously that there was only one guy that really came to play, Mr. Jalen Hurts. Was the only one who really
Yeah.
came out and started playing for that team. Uh, that was bad. I've never seen a
Yeah.
team so unprepared or so not ready to play, which was kind of
Yeah.
surprising. I thought Lincoln Riley would kind of. I it's Oklahoma, man. I thought they'd have at least some things figured out. I mean, for Vanderbilt looked better against LSU.
Yeah.
You know, and for Texas, you know, um, that's what's shocking. It's just Oklahoma was not ready for that. That's kind of what shocked me,
No.
and it just, but it also showed you just, but at the same rate, you just saw at every position SEC talent compared to Big 12 talent. There's such a big discrepancy at every position. Uh, and you know, I'm a big Jalen Hurt fan. I was like, at every position there's
Yeah.
a talent, but I was like, closest one is the quarterbacks, but he's Alabama.
Mhm.
Uh, but man, every position, defense, offense, like man, especially LSU's wide receivers. LSU's wide receivers were just wide open. Just anything
Yeah.
Joe wanted to do, it was there. Um, so
Mm.
it literally was a dismantle. Did you any other
Yeah.
thoughts from that game?
No. Except that Joe Burrow. Did he set any records? Because like he had like 6 touchdowns and 400 yards before halftime. Was that like a record
Probably
at
for
all?
school record.
Because I feel like it
Probably a
should have
school
been.
record.
Because if anything, he definitely solidified himself as the number one overall pick in the draft. Sorry you're going to Cincinnati, but you know, but honestly, that didn't
He plays
surprise
for
me.
LSU. We don't feel that bad.
Yeah. Um, we'll talk about it here in a minute, but I don't like Ohio State more. So LSU I'm okay with. You have a beef with them because your team's in the SEC,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
um
it's I need some
yeah,
respect though. I mean, you know, there's like when we get talking about Ohio State, I don't really have any like for some reason I have no reason not to like just really don't like a team. Like we've had this talk like with the Raiders and the Patriots have got probably even more reasons than the Raiders. Um, but like there's just some teams where you're just like I just don't like them. It's like and Ohio State is
yeah,
definitely one of them. Like um, you know, some heartbreaking losses too, you know, that Alabama's had against Ohio State, you know. But yeah, uh,
uh-huh,
you know, going back to Joe Burrow for a second, it's just, but part of that, JB, was just how unbelievably wide, like it was nonsense how wide open those wide receivers were. I mean, that was 5 yards
yeah,
at times, man. 5 yards.
yeah,
Like that's how much
yeah,
better they were. 5 yards. I keep saying it
yeah,
over, but you get a wide receiver 5 yards open, you're just dinking and dunking the whole. And that's what Joe had. That's all Joe had to do. Um, you know,
yeah,
it was impressive, but not as impressive of when I saw him play Alabama. Uh, because he had
yeah.
definitely much more tighter windows in the Alabama game. I,
Yeah, he had to fight for that. He didn't have to
yeah,
fight for this. That was a beating. That was a team from Norman, Oklahoma, that just didn't want to be there.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if they
shocking,
just
man.
I don't know if they just didn't practice. I don't know if they just thought that they were just so much better
No,
that
yeah,
they,
there was nothing.
just
No,
came out flat-footed. I don't know, but they
yeah.
were not prepared, and LSU was.
And here's the deal.
And
Here's the biggest
so,
deal. This is why we don't want to have conference championships have an automatic playoff berth. This is why.
yeah,
Oklahoma,
yeah,
after all is said is done, really wasn't the top. Like, but
no,
could you have said any of the teams that you were wanting to put in there were the top four teams? Georgia and Alabama, compared to the way Oklahoma played, were better. Even Auburn,
yeah,
even Auburn for that matter,
yeah,
quote unquote, is a better team. And
yeah,
that's why, like, I also kind of like where we're at with the 14 playoff because you really do get a closer. These are the four best teams. You don't get these automatic bids into. So
yeah,
the biggest expansion for playoffs, based on what we saw this year, is you go to six. And I think you even talked about
yeah,
that's why you stay away the most that I think to keep the product of college football, the most we could ever see, in my opinion, would be six. But not
6.
like 8, 16, none of that. Because this is the reason why four works. Because if you start doing more
Yeah,
teams in this playoffs, you're gonna have a lot because there is a clear difference between the talent level, everything that this program's got going at LSU compared to Oklahoma and
mm,
what the talent is in the Big 12. They're just, you saw it.
yeah,
Um, and obviously, it's not going to be
yeah,
like that every year. I would say even Big 10 talent is much better than Big 12 talent. Um, but
yeah,
you just can't, just the way these teams are set up now, that's what's tough about automatic bids. Um,
yeah. I think the committee's definitely next year gonna have to look at it more carefully. Don't just because the team's undefeated doesn't mean they belong in the final four. I think this makes a case that maybe Alabama should have still been in it.
well,
Because
yeah,
that wasn't a
yeah.
competition.
It's just it's
You
hard to
know,
say because I'm an Alabama fan. I don't believe they should have been in it. I think my biggest point is you shouldn't have an automatic bid just because you win your
yeah,
conference. That shouldn't be the determinant of you being in the playoffs or not. The four best teams or the six best teams should be in the like. But that's what's going to be hard if you go to six. You're going to have you could make a case for sure two SEC teams. Two SEC teams are going to be in the playoffs every year, like no doubt, possibly up to
yeah,
three. Um,
yeah,
and and then there's good reasons for that, as we saw the LSU Oklahoma game. Okay, so moving on to the Clemson Ohio State game, a much more competitive game, a really great game. Um, just the way matchup, I was kind of surprised at the outcome. Just with Ohio State's talent, where everything was at. But Trevor Lawrence, man, Trevor Lawrence was the kind of the biggest difference for me. I do think a lot of Ohio State's calls kind of went against them. Some big calls did go, but overall, kind of the biggest difference is what Trevor Lawrence kind of kept Clemson in this, kept them going. The defense was able to make adjustments at the end of the half, and that 14-point swing right before halftime really is what carried Clemson over into the third and fourth quarters. Is really what I saw. That's kind of my first impression of the game. What were your thoughts?
Mine was it came down to coaching. Because in the NFL we look at quarterbacks and we consider coaching also. But I think it came down to coaching, more experience at the coaching position. This is Day's first year with Ohio State, and I think Dabo Sweeney just kind of he's been here, done that, and so I think he was able to make the adjustments needed.
Right.
Trevor
Yeah.
Lawrence definitely, was a factor, but I kind of looked at coaching experience more when I was watching this game. Um, I will be honest, I did not see Clemson winning it. I just looking at their schedule and who they've played compared to who Ohio State had played. I thought Clemson definitely had the more easier of the
Right.
schedules. Uh, Um, so I was shocked there. I was happy though because as we were talking about earlier, Ohio State is just a team that I cannot root for since 2002 because the Hurricanes should have another championship, and we don't because of Ohio State. So yeah, I always celebrate a little bit whenever Ohio
Yeah.
State loses. Just kind of a like yes, that's what it feels like. But um, I was shocked though. I thought this was gonna be Ohio State LSU national championship, and Clemson came to play, and I really liked that. I like that when my ACC conference gets represented in the national championship. Um, I don't see them winning
I
it
don't.
though.
I don't either.
if we just look at LSU, man,
I
I
would
just
say that
don't
for
see
weeks,
it.
man. Everybody's been on this whole Ohio State. You wait till Ohio State gets to Ohio State. It's been all about, but then they're like, no, like you play a team that's been there that makes adjustments, like Clemson did, like
Yeah,
um. But LSU's gonna get Clemson. Like if LSU doesn't beat Clemson, that would be shocking. Like that's how. I mean,
yeah,
I and you, yeah. I keep thinking about my team Alabama. I was just like, there's just but my biggest thing is just, man, just the talent wise, where LSU is just like they've got everything going right now. If LSU
yeah,
loses this game, it would be like as weird as it is to think that against Clemson and whatever, but I would think it'd be kind of an upset, you know. It would kind of
yeah,
shock me that LSU wouldn't win this game, just based on who they have, based on how they've played. Um, they
mm,
just overall are such a different animal this year. And I just don't think
yeah,
Clemson matchup wise is. I don't think Ohio State. Neither one of those teams have the same type of caliber players that LSU has.
yeah.
Um,
And it just comes down to recruiting too. Like
yeah,
Ohio State, I think leads the nation top recruits, but the SEC just always has stronger recruiting classes, and because everybody wants to play in the SEC, it's a very prestigious conference, and a lot of NFL players come out of it. And I'm not saying any NFL players don't come out of the Big Ten, but I just feel like the caliber of players is higher in the SEC, and I just man, I if it would have been Ohio State and Clemson, I think I'd have had a more harder time selecting, but I I just can't really root against an SEC team. Um, when it comes down to it, because they're just a better overall players. I feel like the programs in the SEC are just better. I I feel like Clemson is out of place this year. I don't feel they're as strong as they have been in years past. Do they deserve to be there? Yeah, I guess, but I just feel like LSU is just the overall the better team, um, better coached, um, which is crazy because I can't think of his name, but he's bounced around college football a couple times, and now suddenly he's a pretty good coach, and I can't I I I'm saying it right now. LSU's gonna win by 3 touchdowns.
yeah.
Like
Based on the way that they played, especially against,
that's
I
just
mean,
easy.
at the same rate, Oklahoma just
Hmm.
you've got to look at other games besides that Oklahoma game. Period. That you,
Yeah, yeah,
um, closest in matchup would maybe not. I wouldn't say actually Alabama LSU. It's actually probably if you go watch that Auburn LSU game, is what it's maybe actually going to kind of look like.
yeah,
Besides
yeah,
besides Trevor Lawrence being a much better quarterback, so that's where you could get into. But just the physicality of it, maybe a little bit more of like that Auburn LSU type feel that where LSU won 21-14. You know, but
yeah.
at the same rate, kind of like what you were saying, maybe 3. But I'm kind of thinking like 32-21, something like that. LSU. Um,
Yeah,
something in that
yeah,
range. But if Clemson does figure out a way to win, man, that would be incredible.
yeah.
That'd be a shocker. I
And
mean,
it could come down to coaching again because Dabo Sweeney has more
yeah,
experience than what is
Ed
LSU's
Orgeron,
coach's name?
Ed Orgeron.
Ed Orgeron.
Yep.
Like I said, he's kind of bounced around a couple times. He wasn't very successful at Ole Miss, and so, but maybe it does come down to coaching, and Dabo Sweeney is just able to scheme better and put his just match up better via scheme. I don't know, and if he's able to do that, he might have a chance. But I just the SEC's a powerhouse, and um, I can't root against them, you know.
Yeah,
So
I will
that
say
yeah,
what'll be interesting. I'm thinking about a little bit ahead to next year. Um, just a forewarning, man. All these Alabama players are thinking about coming back, man. That'd be crazy. We get one more. We get
I
one more
told
year,
you,
man.
I told you they would.
I'm still on the. I'm still on. Man, I'm like Tua. You need to go, man. You're fragile like glass, man. You need to. But it
Mm,
sounded like some of these Bama
mm,
players are wanting even. Oh, did they say? I can't remember if Jerry Judy. One of the Jerry Judy was even talking about maybe coming back.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. He wants to play one
so
more year
yeah,
with
so
Tua.
man, that would be crazy if that would be that's
Ooh,
man. I'd love to see Tua one more time, man. I think a lot of the
yeah,
college football world would love to see Tua just one more time.
yeah, yeah. It was like Jalen Hurts in his press conference. I don't know if you watched it, but he's like, I can't come back and fix it. I'm never gonna play college football again. Tua can. He can come back and he can remedy what happened this season. He can do that. Will he? Is it the smart decision? I
Man,
don't know,
because dude,
but he
there's
can.
listen, he would be picked top 10 if he left. Maybe not top
Yeah,
10, but top 20. There's no way he's falling
yeah.
past that 20 threshold. Somebody's gonna take a chance on Tua.
And most mocks, I'm still seeing him going to, and a lot of mocks I've been looking at, I'm seeing him going to Miami. He's not making it. Uh, so
Yeah,
teams still believe in him. They
yeah.
still believe in his talent.
Um,
The injury to a lot of teams just doesn't matter. So
because you are thinking, yeah, because a lot of teams are thinking you've got to give him a year. And so for a fan base, you're
yeah,
not pressured because the fan base knows that he's injured, that you're getting him back. You want to make sure he's healthy. Like a fan base knows that they've got to wait a year, which is an advantage
yeah,
if you're wanting to try to develop a guy.
yeah.
Um, great.
But if he comes back, he's going in the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's not the factor for him. Is what I'm thinking. I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just I just think he really loves playing for Alabama. He wants to. He's
Hmm.
got unfinished business.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Dylan Moses is coming back. Like if they do come back, man, like I'd be so pumped, man. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm like, man, give me one more year to it, man. We'll come back, finish some
yeah.
business, man. But anyways,
Yep.
If you get a chance tomorrow, a lot of great bowl games, amazing bowl games happening tomorrow. You've got Michigan, Alabama. You got
Yes.
Minnesota, Auburn,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Outback Bowl. You've got for the Rose Bowl, Oregon versus Wisconsin, and for the Sugar Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
Georgia versus Baylor. So all day tomorrow, you probably have the best games, probably maybe of the bowl slash playoff season. That all these matchups are
Yep.
super intriguing. Um, we'll see what the SEC's got. I kind of like the SEC and kind of all these matchups tomorrow. So it'll be
Mm-hmm.
interesting though where Minnesota will kind of finish the season up, see how they wrap it all up. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so um, that's all I've got for tonight. Jamie, got any other thoughts?
No, I'm
Yeah.
good, man.
So you
So
guys keep it
yeah.
easy tonight. Stay safe. You can stay up watching the Pipkin and Turnbull show. We won't be up. We'll probably be in bed because we're both old and aging.
And I gotta
Yeah,
work
Jamie's
tomorrow.
got to work, and we're not fun anymore. I came to that realization
Nope.
that I'm not in I'm not in high school and I'm not in college. I'm not cool anymore. I'm just old. 20 an old 28-year-old. Yeah,
Old
that's right.
married.
Oh man. All right, guys. Well, you have a great night. We will see you next week for another.
See you
See you
next
next
year.
year. Exactly. See you next year.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. You guys have a great night.